Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm really excited and delighted to be joined this afternoon by Regan Bradley, who is the Director of Operations and Lettings and Management at Paramount Properties in West Hampstead, my old stomping ground, my old competitors next door me. I was at 146 West End Lane. I think you are at 150 West End Lane from
that's
memory.
Right.
So thanks very much for joining me. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me a reason to brush my hair today.
I've heard so many lovely things about you from Spencer, from Jane Gardner. So I'm very excited to find out a little bit more about Regan Bradley and what makes you tick. So start off with, how did you get into agency?
Well, so this is my 11th year. I started by accident, I'm sure, as most people do. I had a place to do my master's up in Nottingham, and my plan was to go back to do it. I deferred it for a year, so I thought I'll just get a quick job for a year. It won't be anything serious, but we'll see how we go. So I applied through the newspaper, as it was at the time, for Park Heath, which at the time, it was Park Heath at the time, but rebranded pretty soon after and became Saul & Gardner, and I went to work for Jane as a trainee negotiator. So I was supposed to only do a year and then return to do my master's at university, which I obviously didn't do. So I was at Saul & Gardner for 5 years. I ended up, when I left there, or when they required for Countrywide, I was the head of property management. So I did a couple of roles in the interim. We were acquired by Countrywide the same month that Green & Co were, actually. So around that time, 2012, 2013, something like that. And I stuck with Countrywide for about 18 months as head of property management for a property management centre that they had in South London and the stuff that we had outside of Hertfordshire. And then I very much missed the world of independence and wanted to sort of get back in and a bit more hands-on. So I joined Paramount in 2016 as their head of property management. And now I'm, Director of Operations, as you say. So I look after the people, the processes, the systems, and work very closely with Spencer on sort of what we're doing for the business as a whole, really.
Fantastic. Right. I'm going to come up to the people and the businesses and stuff like that. Hi, Luke. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see you. Luke's from Leicester. Thank you. Hi, Liz. Thanks very much for joining us as well. Appreciate it. And some fella called Spencer. Thanks very much for joining us. Don't know which one that is. Could be somebody else. So let's start from going from a trainee negotiator to to running lettings. So what lessons? There's going to be people on here that are negotiators that want to grow. They want to become director of lettings and operations and follow in your footsteps. What did you learn from the start?
I found very quickly that, particularly in a smaller business, as Saul & Gardner was at the time, that in order to make myself indispensable, I needed to know everything. And so from very early on, I was always putting my hand up and volunteering to do anything, whether it had relevance to, doing deals. It didn't matter to me. And because of that, I probably wasn't actually the top negotiator. That wasn't my role or my place. I was far too busy getting involved in things that didn't involve me. And so as a result, I moved over and I spent a year on maternity, filling a maternity cover as Jane Gardner's PA, because she could see that I was interested in other aspects of the business. And so it was like, well, come and sit with me, do a year with me and see it from where I am. And then you can decide which route you want to go down. And that year was really invaluable because we covered everything from marketing. I mean, we used to build and run our own website at Saul & Gardner, through to the deals and the management and doing our own inventories. It was very, very hands-on. And the more I could learn, the better. And I think that is just the key to understanding anything and being successful in anything is learning. So I did that year, and then I decided that actually the management path was slightly more for me than staying at the front end. So I moved to run their management department, and I stayed in management until sort of 3-4 years ago, really. That's where my heart lies a little bit, I guess.
Okay, so I love what you just said there about learning. So where did you pick up that self-development attitude that and actually I liken it to being a kid. You know, you ask the question, you know, why? Why? Where did you get that inquisitive nature from, and that willingness to self-develop and improve and grow?
I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I guess it's just I get bored easily. I like to be stimulated, and you know, in lettings, if you are sort of focused on one area, it can become stagnant. You are repeating. There's a great saying, which is, you know, 3 years experience versus 1 year's experience repeated 3 times is very different. And Jane was a huge advocate at the time for us doing our own stuff. We wanted to run our own marketing. We wanted to run our own website. We wanted to be able to do all of those things and understand them so that nobody else had control of what we were doing. Looking back, probably it came from the fact that they had just come out of a franchise, and for the first time they had control over what it was, you know, that we were able to do. And so probably that's where it came from. And then I sort of soaked that up from her, really. Is actually we want to be able to do as much as possible. And I have continued in that way throughout my entire career. And funnily enough, now, one of my biggest challenges, as recently as, you know, meeting with Spencer in the last month, is to let go, because actually you can't do everything. And, you know, you do need to relinquish some of the control. And actually, maybe that is where it comes from, is that from the very beginning, we wanted control of our business and how we were running it.
Brilliant, thank you. So a few more people have joined us. So hi, Harry, Mrs. Hope you're well. Sarah, thanks for joining us, and thank you once again for your tweet today about the laptops for homeschooling, which was very kind of you. Hi, Eddie, thanks for joining us. Hi, Sam, thank you as well, Agents Together, for doing it. I actually think you are a volunteer, are you?
I am, yeah. I'm starting next week. Next week is my first mentor meeting with the lovely Jennifer, who I'm working with. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Amazing. So actually, I'm going to sidetrack now, and we'll talk about Agents Together. So first,
yeah, of course.
Thank you. That's absolutely amazing. Being a founder member, I'm incredibly grateful for you, Spencer, and every other mentor that's going on there.
It's a great idea. It's fantastic. I mean, I wish there had been something similar when I was, you know, of that age or stage or whatever.
Okay, well, with Sarah and Sam doing an unbelievable job, absolutely sensational. So thank you both. So just out of interest then, why did you decide and want to become a mentor?
Well, to be quite honest, it was through talking to Spencer. I mean, he had started it. He has started it. He was getting so much out of it from the guys that he's been working with that it seemed a no-brainer. So from my conversation with them from the beginning, and you know, the ability to be able to sort of specialize in what it is you want to deal with people, I think is great, because there are bits you're better at than others. And you know, I'm a working mum, that relates to some people. You know, you've got to find the similarities with people, so to be able to do that is fantastic. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah, as I say, my first scheduled meeting is next week.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that. So let's go back. Okay. So you talk about now you look after the people, you look after the systems and processes, you look after your team. So how many people in your team at the moment?
Paramount Lettings, we are sitting between 25 and 30. To be honest, Stephen, it's been so long since people have been sat in the office, I've struggled to count. But yeah, 25 and 30. We've got 8 on a maintenance team as well, who are a sister company, but very much sit with us. And then we've got 4 on sales who don't, I'm not involved in that, but we are all in the same space. Okay.
So talk to me about people. How do you find, how are you finding it? Actually, that's really interesting at the moment, as you said, because you've got people in all different places. So there's going to be people here that are watching that exactly the same. They've got their colleagues, some may be furloughed, some are working from home. How are you, how do you deal with that? That must be a huge challenge for you.
It is. I myself have been at home for all of the lockdowns, although I've been in between. I've primarily worked from home, and that's different for me. So I'm in the same boat as them, essentially. And most of our team are now, in fact, no, completely all of the team except Spencer are based at home. This time around, it's fine because we are so well adapted to it now. I mean, we've got members of the team who haven't been back in the office at all. I know a lot of agents have sort of been functioning throughout this period. We chose not to do that. Our doors have been closed since the very beginning. We've had skeleton staff in at various points throughout the last year where it's been appropriate to do so. But in the main, a lot of our team have worked remotely. And actually, as I was saying before we sort of went live, our entire culture and the way that we operate things, particularly around people at Paramount, has changed more in the last 12 months than at any other point in any business I've ever worked in. I mean, the change is huge. And we are leaning far more towards flexibility and building a working day and a working structure around our people, as opposed to presenting our day and asking people to fit in with it. And the results have been fantastic. And so actually, in response to your question, I'm not worried about people being at home, because people are in the best place and working in the best way they can. Of course, we've got issues with living situations. I mean, everyone's is different. Everyone is struggling. You know, I have a toddler. That's a problem. We have people who live on their own. That's a problem. They're lonely. We have people who live in house shares. That's a problem. So it's different. And we need to allow people to have their moments and their days where, you know, things aren't great. But outside of that, we have made use of all of the technology, of Zoom, of everything else that is going on in the world at the minute, to make sure that we are still very much together. But the flexibility piece has been for me groundbreaking in the last year.
Okay, so again, how did you go back and have those discussions with your teams? Because I know you've done a series of one-to-ones recently, and I think you've got some superheroes. So
we do. We have a lot of superheroes. So we have spent the last year, obviously, sort of feeling our way through, as everybody else has, putting pieces of ideas together for how we want things to be. And then at the end of last year, we needed to formalize that, because with everybody being separate and in different locations, we needed to get our message out to everybody in a more uniform and concrete way, I suppose. So first job for January 2021 was for Spencer and I to put together a PowerPoint. He spent a really long time on it. And we got the team all together on Zoom, and we showed them exactly what it was that we were sort of looking at. And rather than do our usual grand, here's our 5-year plan, it's going to be fantastic, it's too much to envision, especially at the minute. I mean, we can't see past, you know, the end of this lockdown, whenever that will be. So we took it right back, and actually we said, right, here's the plan until the end of March, and followed that up with a one-to-one meeting with every single member of the team to confirm that they knew exactly how they fit into it. So everybody is on the same page and making sure that that is delivered. We are meeting every Thursday, virtually, of course, for these little sort of webinar coaching learning sessions. So every member of the team has a superpower. So that is your area of expertise. And that's your piece of the business that you are not the best at, but, you know, maybe the most knowledgeable or the most passionate, maybe, and that you are sort of confident enough to stand up, virtually, of course, again, in front of everyone else and deliver what it's about. So, for example, I did one this morning. It was on mutual releases and early terminations. It's really boring, but we need to know about it. The questions always come up. Last week, it was about social media. Carla, who does our social media, did a big presentation on how, what, why, when. So we're just trying to encourage everybody to learn, but also to take ownership of that one piece that they are, you know, that's your thing. That's what you are the best at. And it also massively dilutes this sort of hierarchical, I can never say that word, hierarchy that has previously existed. So not everything is bottlenecking through me or through Spencer or through other key members of the team. Actually, everybody is, you know, involved in that, and you can learn from everybody, and you can teach. Yeah, everybody can teach. So that's very much our sort of plan for the next 3 months in regards to that.
Fantastic. So when it comes to people and recruitment, how do you find these exceptional people? Because I know over the years you've gone through a few changes.
Yeah, we have. And to be perfectly honest, we don't have it right yet. It's definitely one of our biggest work-ons for the beginning of this year. In fact, in my one-to-one, it was one of my biggest work-ons is actually to refine our recruitment process. We learn every time that we make a hire, good or bad. We hired, I think, 6 or 7 people during lockdown, which is unusual. A chunk of those started remotely as well. So, you know, figuring out the remote training and how do you incorporate somebody into a team when they haven't even met everybody. That's presented a whole host of new issues. So this year we are very much focused on getting the right people in from the beginning, which I know sounds silly and ridiculous, but I can't count the amount of times that we've sort of been thinking about it and it's like, we'll give it a go. And actually, we'll give it a go isn't good enough anymore. We need to be 100% sure that that person is great. And if not, we'll sit with the hole in the team and we'll make it work until then. So it depends on what role you're talking about, really. At the moment, we are having a bit of a push for asset managers, or property managers is more typically known. And we have realised that our recruitment process prior had no technical basis. We weren't asking people if they knew about property management, which sounds ludicrous, but that's just occurred to us. So we are at the moment very much focusing on that, actually, because you are going to be working from home and because, you know, the training is going to be very different to how it would be if you were here sat next to me. I need another level from you at the moment, and there has to be a certain level of understanding and competence to join the team at a time like this.
So a couple of questions that have come out of it. I loved your language there, where you called a property manager an asset manager. You know, that's very different language to most letting agents. So, you know, just for letting agents watching this, you know, why an asset manager? Why not a property manager? Why is the language so different?
We've looked at changing property manager for years, actually, and we've never quite found something that fits. Asset manager is nearly there because I think it works for the owner. Not sure if it works for the resident yet. Maybe property manager is more, you know, asset manager doesn't really relate to them. It isn't their asset. So we're still working on it. But the reason for the changes is because we want to put the label on that investment. It's an asset. It's not just a property. It's an asset. And we want our service to be always having that in the back of our mind. So every decision that we make as asset managers, every phone call that we make, every conversation that we're having, we need to have that in the back of our mind. What is the person trying to get out of this investment? Are you just trying to protect your home for a year while you're in Australia, and actually all you care about is that it looks exactly the same when you get back? Is it that you need your rent to come in and actually your mortgage payments are really high and you just cannot, you know, there cannot be a lapse in those. We've got to be on that rent. Or is it that you're looking to grow and you want to invest in another year and then a year after that? You know, we have to have those things in the back of our minds in order to provide a more comprehensive service. I think the days of this problem in, solve, problem out management are gone, and there isn't, it's not what we want to be doing anyway.
Brilliant. See, for me, you've just given so much gold just by talking about that, just that one thing. It's amazing, honestly. And then I noticed there you called, you said resident rather than tenant. So again, you know, from what I'm hearing, the language is incredibly different to most letting agencies' language. Why a resident rather than a tenant?
Yeah, this was very much part of the presentation that we gave at the start of the year, which is like, look, we've been using these words, but now that they've changed. As far as we're concerned, they're gone. And if you'd have heard my webinar this morning with the team, where I continually said tenant and landlord and swore after it, it's very much a work in progress. But the mindset is there, and the mindset is that actually tenant has become, it's not derogatory, but there's a stigma to it. You're just a tenant, and that's not the case. You are a resident. You live in that house. You're an occupant. And as far as you are concerned, that's your house. You don't walk it, you know, into your rental flat every evening and think, oh, this is Stephen Brown's house. It's your house. And likewise for the landlord is quite, there's a hierarchy there. You know, it's got the word lord in it. Landlord and tenant, it's a hierarchy. It goes way back to a feudal system time, that word. So actually, you're an owner. It softens it massively when you're talking to the resident anyway. If you're saying, I'm going to talk to the owner of the property, not your landlord. You know, they don't have control over your life. We're trying to remove that sort of, hierarchy, I guess. So this year, saying it out loud now, I guess taking the hierarchy out of the team and out of the tenant and landlord relationship as well.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing. So just coming back, you're onboarding people that haven't met their other colleagues that they're starting. So it'll be a lot easier, all face to face. So
Yep.
what has been your onboarding process now? And what would it be if I was starting, if I'm starting tomorrow, very excited, drive into that lovely car park behind the office at 150 West End Lane. I'm really excited. It's my first day at Paramount in lettings. What would my first day look like if we were back in some form of normality? And what does it look like when I'm there on my first day virtually?
First days are always about bedding in, and they always should be. It should be about basics. It should be about, where is this? Where do I find this? It needs to be about questions and answers, basically. Because as much as you ask in interviews and at offer stage, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? There's always questions they don't want to ask. And actually, there's questions on the first day that they don't want to ask. So what we're trying to devise, and what we have devised previously, is almost sort of a Paramount handbook that will answer those questions for you. Nobody wants to walk in on their first day and say, oh, actually, how do I book holiday? Because it makes you look bad. So, but people need to understand, how does that system work? So just covering off the basics like that, we would do big introductions. You'd meet everybody, of course. What we've had to do is obviously everything virtually. So we have been able to have most new starters in the office, but they've been the only people in the office. So we've had to remove the rest of the team in order to be able to have them there so that everybody is safe. So it's been a lot of stuff going on virtually, and actually it's been okay. It's been fine. It's been quite handy. I think sometimes if you walk into an office of 30 people on a Monday morning, and actually that's something I've changed. I've stopped people starting on Mondays and moved it to Tuesdays and not first thing, because people are too busy and you're trying to introduce somebody and everybody is just, hi, yeah, sorry, on the phone. And you don't get that welcoming feel. So the last lot of onboarding we did it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Because there was a smaller amount of people in the office, actually it was much nicer. And so they bedded in with sort of the immediate 4 or 5 people who were allowed to be there. And then we sort of fanned it out to the wider team. So actually it's been quite good. And yeah, we've learned a bit from it. I think we'll be changing the process for when we go back for everybody.
Okay, brilliant. So you've obviously recruited a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say are the qualities of a top performer when it comes to being a in lettings or an asset manager? What do you look for?
I think if I had the answer to that question, I wouldn't be struggling to recruit at the minute. It's so different. I mean, I think part of this new mindset that we're working with actually is that the variety is better. So actually, if we try and apply a formula to these positions, what we end up with is 3 or 4 people who are the same. And when you have 3 or 4 people that are the same, there is one who is best and there are 3 who are not as good. What you really need is 3 or 4 completely different people who fill the gaps in knowledge or in skill as the others. So I work with a lot of recruiters, and I'm sure a lot of them think I'm a pain in the arse. They're all lovely, the ones we do, but we are so not picky, but you just know sometimes, and it's very difficult for us to give you a definitive list. I mean, we've moved away from the whole sort of job description thing, and we've moved away from sort of listing out these characteristics, because it just doesn't work like that, which gives them very little to work on, really. It's like someone registering for a house and sort of having absolutely no idea what they want, but just saying, we'll know it when we see it, sort of thing. I mean, there are common traits, of course. We have an incredibly hardworking team. The work ethic is always there across the board with our guys. We tend to find that we get or have had success previously with people from sort of sporting backgrounds. I guess that's a discipline thing. We've got a fair few, or have had a fair few, sort of ex-professional, very close to professional sportsmen or athletes. So there's definitely some threads of continuity, but other than that, we are very open to sort of the weird and wonderful.
Brilliant. What a great answer. Thank you. Systems and processes. So I'm a massive system and process fan. Massive. I thought I was anal until I met Spencer. So why are systems and processes so important? And for people that really struggle with them, you know, how would you start? You know, how frequently are you refining them? I know that's about 22 questions in one question.
That's fun.
But okay.
Where to start, I guess. How often are we refining them is an easy one. We look at them constantly, and once we're finished, we start again. And that's been ever since I started at Paramount. They are important, and I came from Countrywide, which is so systems and process heavy, it's almost detrimental in my opinion. But I learned that actually is very important, and that we couldn't scale without it. And when I joined Paramount, we were very much at the point of that sort of next step to go up to the slightly bigger leagues, you know, to start dealing with slightly more. But we didn't have the systems and processes because everything was a little bit, you know, we had lots of people doing their own different things. So that was one of the very first projects really that I worked on and helped with, was actually we need to systemize everything. Everybody needs to be following some sort of process. Spencer always calls it flexible in a framework. So we don't like to have that, you know, box ticking type. That's not the kind of systems and processes I'm talking about. It's having everybody understand how what they do affects everybody else, so that you aren't just willy-nilly checking things on the system or not using this correctly, how your piece lines up with everybody else's. That's incredibly important. We have to have some sort of process and system. We can't scale without it, which is obviously really important. And at the moment, particularly, systems and processes have become in the last year a way for us to be able to eradicate a lot of the administration that we're doing. We really want to move away from having admin-based roles. There will always be a few, don't get me wrong. You know, it's a compliance-heavy industry. You know, we'll always have to have some administration done. But what we want and what we have really in the main, we've done a fairly good job, is we want people who are seeking opportunity and making good decisions in every seat. And for them to be able to do that, they cannot be sat doing piles and piles of admin. So wherever we can find a system or a process or a piece of tech that can replace that, then we'll do it. And so as a result, we are continually changing. I mean, it's one of the best things about Paramount. It's one of the worst things about Paramount. It depends who you speak to. If you love change, I love change. I can roll with it. Some people can't. But it's constant. And it's the only way that we have managed, I think, to keep ahead of sort of this COVID curve, as it were.
Okay, so really interesting point. I'm a firm believer about change, you know, and you've got to embrace change. So firstly, how do you deal with the constant change? And I know we've spoken before, and you said in the last year you've never seen so much change. And then how do actually you get your colleagues to deal with all this constant changes as well? How do you get them to buy into all of this, that, you know, actually there is a better way of doing it? We found this better way. So, because there are a lot of people that are pretty resistant to change.
There are. I think that what we've learned, and as I said, we've made a lot of changes, some of them good, some of them not so good, but the successful ones come from the team understanding why that change is happening. And I think at times, well, at loads of points throughout my career, I've been guilty of not communicating it well enough. So as an example, it's all very well Spencer and I sitting and, you know, having lovely conversations about what's going to change, and we fully understand why, and we're excited and we're passionate and let's move forward. If our team don't feel like that, then it's not going to go anywhere. And so bringing everybody in from the very, very early stages is really important. And then also having the change come from them. I mean, the change doesn't always come from us. It's, as we say, it's not a top-down business. We don't run like that. I don't work, you know, on the front line of lettings, so I can't make those decisions. So I think if you have everybody involved and you have somewhat of an open forum to discuss ideas, to put ideas forward, and they know that their ideas will also be accepted and also be implemented, and pretty quickly, then actually everybody just becomes far more open to just the whole thing. You will always have people who don't like change. It's people's nature, and there isn't an awful lot that you can do about it. You know, we handhold and we cajole along until the point where we say, no, actually, this is happening. And you've just got to find your space on that spectrum, I guess. Okay,
so you touched on tech. What have you seen and used differently in the last year that's worked really, really well with your systems and processes and streamlined it?
A fair bit. So the obvious big change, which I'm sure Spencer has spoken about before, is obviously the use of video and the work that they're doing with the Holify guys and getting that website completely transparent in terms of if I'm a resident looking for a new property, I can see everything I need to see, good, bad, and ugly, in that space. So they've done loads of work at the front end with that, and the Holify virtual viewings tools are fantastic. On the back end, we've been up and running now with Christian and the depository for about 4 months, maybe not even that much, actually 3 months, and that's been just revolutionary for us, really. I mean, it's such a pinch point for people, the end of a tenancy, the deposit return, and that has minimized the admin. And that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about, where it's necessary admin, but do you want your asset managers doing it? It's just, it has to be done, of course, but, can we automate it? And his system has been phenomenal in making that possible for us. We went online. We decided to migrate our entire key system over to Keys app in the summer. And again, it's small time saving things, but actually just the ability to be able to tap in and tap out and to be able to see, particularly when we're remote, which is another reason why we're trying to get up and running so quickly. When we're looking, I don't want to be reliant on whoever is in the office. They've got enough going on, managing keys in and out, to be saying, oh, have you got this there? Are they hanging up? Actually, everybody from wherever they are can log in. They can see what's there, see what's hanging up, what's waiting to go out, what needs to be chased back in. So yeah, there are all things that have helped us work either remotely or have reduced that administration that I'm talking about.
Okay, fantastic. So a couple more questions. I'm grateful for your time.
No,
you talked about maintenance as well, and having a separate division of maintenance. Is that something that you have to manage them as well? And how do you find them? And, what is the reason why you decided to have a maintenance department?
Yeah, so they very much work with us. They're just part of our team. I mean, they work under a sister company because it's a completely different industry almost. And actually, it's funny. I've learned so much from working with those guys, because your traditional management techniques that, I sort of strolled in from country. I know I've managed big teams. This will be fine. They work on site. They don't really listen to me. It's a totally different way of talking to them, interacting with them. The way they work. Their working day is set up differently. It's completely different, and you have to be aware of that their minds aren't set for an office environment. They don't think the same way. They don't have the same politics. It's all very, very different. But it was one of the big draws, 100%, when I was, looking to move to Paramount. I'd never worked anywhere that had an in-house maintenance team before. And it just seemed like it would be such a time saver and a game changer, really, as a property manager at the time. And it is, and it was. It allows our asset managers to have people on hand who know our properties. I mean, a lot of our guys have been with us 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. They know these properties inside out. They are included on all of the fixed flow maintenance issues that are logged. So, I mean, we can pick these up in real time. The guys can do it of their own accord. They are trusted. They're known by our tenants. They'll often phone them directly. They're just an extension of what we're doing, really. And yeah, it's fantastic value, particularly as an asset manager.
Fantastic. So behind you, you've got a library of books, e-learning. So what do you do to self-improve yourself and get better and self-develop?
I read a lot. I do. I've just sorted all my books out. Actually, these are all to go to the charity shop. So I should have hid those a bit better. I love to read everything, from fiction through to non-fiction. I read all the time, every night. And just, I guess, from anyone that I can. Webinars. and not necessarily just property related. To be honest with you, the last thing I want to do when I come home is read about property. The books that I read typically aren't, but there's always stuff that you can apply and take away. So mainly reading. I'm an avid reader.
Okay. Lovely. So if there was one book you had to recommend, what would that be?
Oh gosh, that's a really tough question. If you're talking business books, which you would because it's a business podcast, I think the most recent book that's had such an effect on us and at Paramount is Patty McCord Powerful, because Spencer read it 7 times or something ridiculous, bought it for everybody. We've all read it, and actually it's changed when I'm talking about this more flexible environment and this sort of way that we were moving but didn't quite know what it looked like or what it should look like, or is this okay? Her book gave it all a bit of purpose and a bit of direction, and actually, yeah, no, this is the right thing to do. This is how we want our company to feel. These are the things that we want to inhabit, about the self-learning and the, you know, taking that development on yourself as opposed to sort of waiting to passively receive it from your employer. So definitely that one. In the last
okay, so who was the author? I called Powerful, but I didn't catch the person who wrote it.
Patty McCord.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Regan, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest. I've learned loads and loads from you today. I'm incredibly grateful for your time. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. Really, really grateful. Thank you. So next Monday, I'm going to be joined at 7:30 in the morning by Sam McLean, who is writes for Elevate magazine and Elite magazine in Australia. So we'll be learning about all her interviews and all the top performers. Tuesday evening, I think at 7 o'clock, I've got a Mark Hunter, who is Jeb Blunt. So looking forward to that. And next Thursday, I'm joined by Andy Neal of Andrew & Co., who went out and worked in America and has got a business in the UK. And we're going to discuss the differences between there and here and what he's learnt. So thanks very much for joining us. Just want to talk about the laptops for homeschooling. I want to thank everybody who's got involved in that. £23,000 as of today, which is the 28th of January, has been donated. I want to say a massive, massive thank you. Please keep on donating. I know now schools are going to be definitely not going to be opening to at least March the 8th. So schools are desperate for laptops from everything I'm hearing. So it's made me even more determined to raise even more money. So please get involved, donate, and then I'm getting the computers out as quickly as I possibly can. Regan, thanks so much. Thank you all, and have a really great Thursday afternoon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.